Hey, I'm Liana. I always believed that family meant comfort, protection, and love. But on the night I turned 30, I learned just how wrong I was. No hugs, no warm words, just a packed suitcase sitting by the door, and a sharp, quiet command. Time to grow up. No goodbye, no thank you. I had covered their rent, paid off their loans, took care of every bill without a complaint. And still, I was treated like I didn't matter. But getting kicked out wasn't even the worst part. The real pain came from realizing they'd been taking advantage of me for years, and I was too blind to see it. And when I finally stood up, for myself, they tried to crush me. Before we begin, what time is it where you are? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your story too. Because sometimes it's not about surviving the storm. It's about realizing you were never supposed to stay in it. I pulled into the gravel driveway, the sky painted with streaks of orange and gray as the sun dipped behind the small hills of Clearwater, Indiana. The evening air had that early autumn sharpness, the kind that sneaks down your sleeves and makes you hug yourself tight. I reached across to the passenger seat and picked up the small cake box. I had bought it for myself. Vanilla icing, red letters, $20 special. The words "Happy Birthday" were written crooked, but I didn't bother correcting the sleepy cashier. Stepping into the house, something felt strange. Not that I was expecting balloons or a birthday dinner. I'd stopped hoping for those years ago. My parents, Darren and Lila, hadn't bothered with any kind of celebration for me in a long time. But tonight, the silence felt colder than usual. The ceiling lights buzzed, softly above, casting a dull glow over the kitchen. Dinner was already set: meatloaf, green beans from a can, and instant mashed potatoes. Before I could even take my coat off, Darren's voice cut through the stillness from the head of the table. "You're late." I placed the cake on the counter, the plastic bag crackling louder than I wanted. "Had to finish a few things at work," I said flatly. Lila didn't even glance up. She kept poking her food, silent. Darren poured another glass of whiskey, the chipped tumbler catching the light. I hung my jacket and sat down slowly. The air was heavy with unspoken tension. The meal began, fork scraping, ice clinking in glasses, the occasional cough. No birthday. Wishes. No smile. Just the sound of chewing and swallowing like we were strangers. I picked at my food without much interest. I should have seen it coming. Darren never stayed quiet long. Halfway through dinner, he slammed his fork down, making Lila flinch. He leaned back and looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're not a kid anymore. Time to pack up and move on." His voice was hard, practiced. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen. I looked at Lila, hoping for a different answer. But she kept staring at her plate, lips pressed tight. "I pay the bills," I said calmly. "Internet, power, half the rent, groceries." He laughed once, short and sharp. "Paying a few things doesn't mean you live here forever, sweetheart." Sweetheart. That old nickname he used when I was 5 and ran to him with skinned knees. Now it was thrown like an insult. I swallowed hard. This wasn't a sudden reaction. They had thought this through. They waited for this day, for my birthday, to say it. This wasn't a celebration. It was a deadline. I pushed my plate away. The food, the cake, the silence, it all sat heavy in my stomach. I stood up. Their eyes followed me, waiting for a reaction. Maybe they expected me to cry, but I didn't. I just nodded. Once, firm. "All right," I said. Darren smiled like he had won. Lila still didn't say anything. She just sat there, head down, too quiet to stop what was happening. I turned and walked, toward the stairs. I stopped for a second near the counter where the cake still waited in its bag. The plastic handle had stretched thin, biting into the soft edge of the cake box. One of the candles had fallen out. Maybe it shifted in the car, but in that moment it felt like more than that. One candle gone, one person forgotten, one family broken. I didn't look back as I carried the box upstairs. Each step groaned beneath my feet, loud and unforgiving, like it knew I didn't belong here anymore. I shut my bedroom door and leaned into it, the sound echoing in my chest like a soft thud. This had never really been my place. Maybe it never was. I sat quietly on the edge of my bed, staring at the luggage I hadn't fully packed. I'd been too scared. A part of me expected this day would come. Maybe not now. Maybe not like this. But eventually, I thought I could stop it by doing more, by being useful, by always saying yes. I pulled off my jacket and folded it across the bag. My movements were calm and steady, not because I didn't care, but because I had nothing left to fight with. As I moved through my room, grabbing a few things, my brain started sorting through tasks. Stop the automatic bill payments. Move the rest of my money into my own account, the one Mom made me keep open for family emergencies. Find a storage unit. Figure out where to go next. They didn't just throw me out. They erased everything. I gave without ever asking how I managed to give it. Outside the window, wind started shaking the last brown leaves off the old maple trees. Winter was on its way, but I wouldn't be here to feel it. I zipped the suitcase. In the mirror, I saw the same brown hair pulled back, the same tired green eyes, but something behind them had shifted. A line had been crossed, and I couldn't go back even if I wanted to. I sank onto the bed again. The cake sat on the nightstand now, looking small and silly. I never even bought candles. There was no one here to blow them out for. The smell of icing was thick and too sweet. It made my stomach turn. I stared through the plastic window at the messy smear of frosting. Then I knocked it off the nightstand without thinking. It landed on the carpet with a soft thump. Cardboard bent. Frosting smudged. Happy birthday, Liana. I sat there in silence, my heart heavy but quiet. The open suitcase by my feet looked like it was judging me. Still half empty. Still waiting. The wind outside pushed against the old window glass, making the loose panes rattle. No one ever fixed them. The house creaked like it was tired of standing. And for the first time, I saw it. Clearly, not a home, but a space I was only allowed in when I was needed. My eyes landed on the cake, now ruined on the floor. It looked like some forgotten child's wish crushed into the rug. I turned away from it, looking instead at the bag I'd carried through all the years. Its handle was shiny with wear, its weight filled with more than clothes. It held years of being the one who cleaned up after everyone else. Years of paying the price while others made the mess. The memories poured in like cold water. I remembered when Darren smashed the bathroom mirror during one of his drunken fits. He needed dental work but couldn't afford it, not with bills piled on the kitchen counter. So I used my savings, the ones I had for my own apartment, and paid cash. He didn't say thanks. He didn't even look at me. Just came home sore and angry, muttering under his breath. Then there was the winter Lila spun out on the icy road with bald tires. She called me crying. I left work, bought her a new set, even paid the towing fee. She smiled, called me a sweet girl, then handed me the repair bill like it was my job to finish it. When the roof leaked last spring, I was the one climbing the ladder in the rain. Darren just sat inside with his beer, shouting that contractors can't be trusted, while his freeloader daughter was the one saving the house, and none of it earned me a place at their table tonight. I pushed my palms against my eyes until sparks of light danced behind them. The pain was still there, but it was changing, hardening into something solid. I stood. Quiet steps across the room. I grabbed my phone from the table and walked downstairs like I had so many times before. In the living room, the TV flickered across the walls, coloring them blue. Darren leaned back in his chair, holding a beer. Lila sat stiff on the couch, her eyes blank and far away. They looked calm, like nothing had happened. Like tonight was just another evening where they ate, drank, and waited for someone else to clean up after them. I stood at the edge of the room, watching, waiting. Maybe some part of me still wished, just for a second, that Lila would glance up, that Darren would blink through his buzz and remember who paid the bills when we were one step from the dark. But hope is tricky. It makes you wait for people who already let you go. And tonight, it died quietly. Darren noticed me standing there. He lifted his beer with a sloppy grin. "Don't forget to turn off the lights when you leave," he mumbled. "You're not covering them anymore." That stung deeper than a slap. They weren't just pushing me out. They were trying to erase every bit of what I'd done for them. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for anything. I let the quiet wrap around what was left of me, and I turned away. I went back up the stairs, each one slower than the last. My chest felt like it was filled with bricks. When I reached my room, I shut the door gently. My palm rested on the wood, like I was trying to lock away the version of me that once believed love and loyalty were the same thing. I stood still, letting the smell of dusty carpet and forgotten memories wash over me. Then I crouched under the bed and pulled out my laptop. If they thought they could toss me aside and keep living off the life I built, they were about to get a wake-up call. I opened the laptop. The screen glowed pale against the dark room. My fingers moved quickly, like they knew the path without thinking. Years of paying bills, transferring money, setting reminders. I was good at this. One by one, I opened the accounts. Power, water, gas, everyone in my name. I paused over the utility page. My finger hovered. Then I pressed down. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Each click cut another invisible rope I had tied to this place. This house wasn't love. It was just a space where silence grew louder than care. Next was the bank, the joint account, the one Mom had insisted I keep, just in case. I moved every dollar into the private account I had quietly created months ago. My gut had whispered this day would come. I listened too late, but not too late to act. Done. Next came the internet and cable. They'd been watching TV all evening, never knowing it was my paycheck keeping the Wi-Fi on. Click, gone. Another click, gone. It wasn't anger, it was justice. Then I reached the car insurance. Darren's rusty pickup, Lila's old sedan, both listed under my plan. I remembered her soft voice. "You're so smart with money, sweetheart. It just makes sense this way." Yeah, it did, for them. I removed both vehicles. My heart beat faster, not with panic, but with a strange sense of peace. Once every account was cleared, I closed the laptop. The small click echoed like a final note in a long, unfinished song. The silence in my room didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt clean, sharp, like something was finally over. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't rage. It was balance. They wanted me out. Fine. But now they'd understand what it meant to lose the one person holding it all together without ever asking for credit. Downstairs, the laugh track of some comedy show echoed up the stairs. They were still sitting there, sipping their drinks, lost in a show they didn't pay for. I wondered how long it would take for the heat to cut off, for the lights to blink out, for the real world to break into their little dream. I wasn't staying to watch. By morning, I'd be gone. But tonight, I started removing the bricks they had built their comfort on. Bricks I carried for them, one by one. The laptop screen dimmed a little as I sat back in my chair. It was nearly midnight. The whole house was quiet, like it was holding its breath. Outside, the wind stirred the dry oak leaves below my window. The air smelled like brittle branches and cold days ahead. I sat still. I wasn't just worn out from the day. I was drained from a lifetime of carrying weight no one noticed, but there was no space for tiredness now. I cracked my knuckles, took a deep breath, and pulled up the electricity account again. I'd been the one handling bills ever since Darren. Forgot one winter and we went 2 days without heat. The password slid easily into the login box, muscle memory doing the work for me. Within seconds, I was in the system. My breathing was calm, my focus sharper than it had been in years. I clicked Remove Payment Method. The confirmation flashed. Submit. No pause. Next came the water bill. Same routine. Auto pay off. Card details erased. I wasn't just leaving this house. I was removing myself from every pipe, wire, and digital cord that had kept this place running. Netflix was next. I almost laughed seeing the profile names, Dad's, Mom's, and Family Night. That one made me scoff. We hadn't had a movie night. In 10 years, delete account internet, gone. Phone plan add-ons, gone. My Amazon account, disconnected from their address. Every action wasn't about payback. It was survival. It was telling the truth, one click at a time. After about an hour, I slid the laptop over and grabbed a yellow notepad from my drawer. Line by line, I wrote down each service I'd canceled. I wanted to see it. Proof. A full list of what they never appreciated. As I finished writing, the past came crashing in. Late nights staying behind at work, clocking extra hours just to cover a surprise heating bill. Vacations I never took so Lila could fix her alternator. My own birthdays, ignored, because something else was always more important. My hand tightened around the pen. I forced it steady. This wasn't punishment. It was a quiet refusal to keep being their cushion. I scrolled through my banking app and found the emergency savings account I had started years ago. Back then, I thought it was smart, just in case our family ever faced another cold winter or dark summer. It was in my name, but I'd made sure they could use it too, because that's what families do, right? I tapped Freeze account, no transfers, no withdrawals. Undoing it would take weeks of paperwork. By then, I'd be far away. As the screen blinked confirmation, a tight knot in my chest finally started to loosen. I had given everything, my time, my money, my loyalty. Tonight, for once, I chose myself. A new email pinged. It was Tyler, my cousin. He'd sent a cartoon meme of a dog sitting in flames saying, "This is fine." No message. Just that. I let out a quiet, empty laugh. He always had a weird sense of timing. I thought about replying, but didn't. He wasn't part of this. He was family, but not this kind. Some bridges need to fall without anyone watching. Instead, I opened a blank message. Subject: You asked me to leave. Now so has my support. I stared at the blinking cursor. Then I closed the tab. They didn't deserve a goodbye. They earned the silence. The clock read 1:57 a.m. The house moaned and settled in the quiet. Somewhere, downstairs, I heard a glass tap the sink. I pictured Lila sipping wine on the couch, reruns playing like nothing was about to shift under her. The heater kicked on, rumbling deep below the floorboards, probably the last warm night they'd have. In a while, I checked everything again, every cancel, every freeze. All set to go live at sunrise. It was neat, final, no takebacks. Tomorrow morning, Darren would flick on a light and wonder why nothing happened. Lila would swipe her card at checkout and watch it bounce. Her show would freeze mid-episode. They would feel it. I didn't grin. I didn't cry. I just felt hollow. But it was the kind of hollow that meant something else could finally grow. At 2 a.m., I shut the laptop with a quiet click. Leaning back in my chair, I watched the shadows dance on my ceiling. My bag sat by the door. It was ready. My car was parked a couple of blocks away, hidden under a street lamp. It was already packed. Just the essentials. Tomorrow, I would leave this place behind, this worn-out town, this heavy life of duty and silence. Tomorrow, they'd wake up in a world without the daughter they ignored until she was gone. The morning sun barely filtered through the blinds in Nora's small apartment when my phone buzzed loud against the side table. Half asleep, I pulled the blanket tighter, hoping it was just a wrong number. But one look at the screen ruined that hope. 12 missed calls. Lila, Darren. A few numbers I didn't recognize, probably nosy neighbors or distant cousins. I didn't listen to the voicemails right away. I just stared at the screen. Guilt tried to rise, but I pushed it down. They made their choice. I rolled over and checked a message from Tyler first. He always skipped the drama and went straight to the facts. No power, no internet, Dad's furious, Mom's crying. I dropped the phone on the mattress and stared at the cracks in Nora's ceiling. It had started, and I wasn't there to fix it. Not this time. A new voicemail alert popped up. I hit play on speaker while tugging on a sweater. Lila's voice trembled through the phone. "Sweetheart, this must be a mistake. You wouldn't really leave us like this. Please call. We can talk. We're still family." I shut my eyes for a moment. How strange. I was a freeloader last night. Now with no Wi-Fi, I was family again. Another ping. A text from Darren. "You'll regret turning your back on your family. No. Kindness." No confusion, just anger. I flipped the phone over, screen down. Nora came into the room, 2 mugs of coffee in hand, wearing a huge hoodie and messy hair. She didn't speak right away. She just passed me a mug and sat on the floor beside the bed. After a sip, she said softly, "You look like someone told you your winning lottery ticket just expired." I let out a dry laugh. "They're panicking," I said. Nora leaned against the wall. "Good," she replied. "Sometimes saving yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival." We sat there for a long while, listening to the low rumble of a garbage truck outside. Later that day, we walked to a small fall festival at the neighborhood church. It was simple: pumpkins, pies, candles, and a lot of old folks chatting near fold-out tables. I stayed near the edges, keeping to myself. But the whispers didn't take long to find me. Darren was there. He stood by the apple-bobbing booth, voice loud enough to grab attention. "My daughter walked out on us," he boomed. "After everything we gave her. No respect, no thanks. These kids today." People glanced at him. Some nodded. Others didn't look so sure. He had done this before. Made public scenes when things didn't go his way. And people remembered. Nora touched my elbow gently. "Don't," she whispered. I hadn't noticed I'd taken a step toward him. I stopped, took a breath. Let him play the victim. I didn't owe him an audience. Instead, I walked past the booths. Whispers trailed behind me. Didn't her daughter pay all their bills? Wasn't she the one who stayed back when her mom was sick? Strange how now she's the villain. The air was shifting. Darren and Lila could tell their side, but the cracks were showing, and small towns have long memories. That evening, back at Nora's place, I scrolled through updates from friends, photos of the house. Dark windows, newspapers stacked on the porch, a note that Darren had yelled at the electric company in front of the whole street. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were just embarrassed they couldn't hide it anymore. As the sun sank behind the rooftops, casting soft purples across the streets, I stood by Nora's window, watching the town go quiet. Somewhere not far, the house I once held together was slipping into darkness. But this time I didn't run to fix it. The lights went out, and something inside me went quiet too. Even as the night turned into morning, the world didn't stop. People rushed off to work, dogs barked at delivery vans, children giggled at the bus stop. Life carried on like mine hadn't just cracked wide open. 3 days drifted by in a haze. I tried building a new rhythm. I kept myself busy, filing documents across Nora's kitchen table, scrubbing the shared bathroom, updating my resume for the 100th time, anything to stay distracted. Anything to keep from thinking about them, but the mind never listens. Mid-morning, my phone buzzed again. That familiar hum instantly tightened my chest. I almost ignored it. Almost. It was a message from Lila. "After all we did for you, this is how you repay us? Your dad's not eating. His health is getting worse." I stood in the middle of Nora's living room, the phone feeling heavy in my hand, my stomach twisting in knots. Guilt came fast, hot, deep, sharp. I sank into the couch and read her words again and again until they blurred. Images rushed in, uninvited. Birthday. Cakes she baked when I was little. Late-night chats on the sofa. Burnt turkey at Thanksgiving. Memories that didn't match who they'd become, but still stung with something familiar. What if they were truly hurting? What if I was being too harsh? The guilt burrowed deeper, but it didn't stop there. The calls rolled in. Aunts, uncles, people I barely knew acting like experts on my life. One voicemail crackled with Aunt Marcy's voice. "You know his heart isn't strong. Families fight, but cutting them off like this? That's cruel." Uncle Phil's text came next. "Think of your mother. This could destroy her." Each message chipped away at me. Maybe I was cold. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe. Then my phone buzzed again. "Tyler! Dad told Mom to fake chest pains next if guilt tripping doesn't work." I stared at the message. The air left my lungs, so that was their next move. Not fixing anything, not owning anything. Just another performance, another trap. They didn't miss me. They missed what I gave. Empty. I dropped the phone on the coffee table and curled up on the couch. The sunlight crawled across the floor, warm and slow, sliding over Nora's old rug. I let it all press down on me. All the years of being the helper, the fixer, the silent one, trying to prove I belonged in a family that only saw me as useful. It wasn't grief anymore. It was something colder, something steel hard. I didn't move until Nora came home. Her sneakers squeaked as she stepped inside. "You okay?" she asked, dropping her bag. I gave a small nod, because finally I was. When she disappeared into the kitchen, I picked up my phone. I scrolled through every contact: Darren, Lila, Aunt Marcy, Uncle Phil, every cousin who had something to say but never once asked how I was doing. One by one, I deleted them. No rush, no tears. Just quiet finality. Then I blocked every number connected to that life, not out of hate, out of kindness, to myself. I set the phone down and leaned back. For the first time in years, I took a deep, real breath. I knew tomorrow would bring new problems. This wasn't the end of the storm. But tonight I had claimed one small win. I expected the silence to feel like peace. But it was strange, like the world paused, holding its breath with me. The first few days were quiet. I helped Nora reorganize her space. I applied for jobs nearby. I made us dinner, simple things like pasta or soup. Little moments, little steps. Trying to rebuild something whole, and for a moment I thought I'd escaped the wreckage they tried to leave inside me. But then it started. A Thursday morning. The air had shifted. A cool breeze slid through the cracked windows. Fall was arriving. And with it, something else. I was sipping lukewarm coffee from one of Nora's chipped mugs when my phone lit up across the table. At first, I assumed it was another job rejection, but it was a message from Carrie, an old coworker I hadn't spoken to in months. "Hey, have you seen what your dad posted?" My chest tightened. Curious, I tapped the link. And there it was, plastered all over the local Facebook group like a bruise nobody could ignore. Darren's words glared from the screen. "Some daughters are raised to be thankful, others grow up to be snakes. After all our sacrifices, she left us sick and starving. Pray for us." Over 100 comments already. Some offered prayers. Others, people I barely knew, threw blame like daggers. Ungrateful brat. Parents give everything, and this is the thanks they get. My hand trembled. I nearly dropped the phone. Nora looked up from the counter, concern creasing her face. "Bad?" she asked. I nodded, pressing the phone to my chest as if I could block out the sting. By noon, the storm had spread. My inbox overflowed with screenshots, friends sending me warnings, neighbors, old classmates, even a few former teachers. Their comments cut deep. I always knew something was off with that girl. Nora sat down across from me, her voice like steel wrapped in calm. "They're rewriting your story. You gonna let them?" The word struck, somewhere deep inside me. No, not this time. I shut off my phone. Then I turned to the drawer. Inside was the folder, the one filled with proof, bank slips, screenshots, receipts, years of silent sacrifice, all carefully saved, all quietly carried. Utility. Bills in my name. Mortgage payments withdrawn from my account. Emails with landlords showing I handled repairs, on my dime. They had forgotten what it cost because they never paid the bill, but I hadn't. I spent the afternoon scanning everything, sorting files, naming folders. Every click reminded me who I used to be and why I'd never be that person again. Each receipt was a flashback, each document a final nail. By the time the sun dipped below Nora's window, I had built a digital fortress. Neat, quiet, undeniable. Nora peeked in from the hallway. "You gonna post it?" I looked up from the laptop, then shook my head slowly. "Not yet," I said. "Let them keep talking. Let them show who they really are." Because I understood something Darren and Lila never expected. This wasn't rage. This wasn't some messy outburst. This was patience, strategy, Small towns live on whispers, but they collapse when truth is louder. All I had to do was wait. Just wait for the lies to sag under their own weight, and when they did, I wouldn't have to shout. I'd simply show the truth. That night, Nora and I ate leftover spaghetti on the couch. She raised her fork like a toast. To survival, she said. I lifted mine. To never apologizing for choosing yourself. Later, in the quiet of the spare bedroom, I stared at the ceiling. Darren's post echoed in my head. Some daughters are raised to be grateful. He wasn't wrong. I had been grateful. Grateful. Even when they emotionally starved me. Grateful when they drained my bank account. Grateful while they erased who I was. But not anymore. That version of me was gone. By the time I drifted off to sleep, my mind had already decided the truth they thought I'd bury. I was about to shine a light on it. The next morning, I sat at Nora's small dining table. The laptop glowed in front of me. My heart thudded, but my hands were steady. The air smelled like last night's coffee and the soft damp of morning rain. Ordinary scents. But this wasn't an ordinary moment. I uploaded. The thread, no drama, no shouting, just the truth. First, screenshots of utility bills, power, water, internet, all in my name, all clearly dated. Then, bank statements showing mortgage payments taken out month after month, even when Darren's paycheck should have covered it. Next, emails between me and the landlord confirming I paid for home repairs that kept that old house together through brutal winters. Finally, a timeline. The vacations I gave up. The birthdays I missed. The years I lived on less so they could live on more. I hit post and waited. And at the end of it all, I added just one line. When they told me to leave, they didn't just lose a daughter. They lost the person who kept the lights on when no one else noticed they were flickering. I hit post. For a beat, the world stood still. The only sound was the hum of Nora's fridge in the background. Then the notifications started. A slow ripple, a few likes, some surprised comments, messages from old friends. I always wondered why you stayed so long. Then everything shifted, like a dam breaking open, dozens of shares, hundreds of comments, neighbors, former teachers, even people I barely remembered began speaking up. One neighbor posted, I remember her shoveling their whole driveway when she was 16. Her parents stood on the porch yelling the whole time. Another wrote, Darren used to brag that he never had to pay a single utility bill once Liana started working. Story after story came pouring in, things people had seen but never said, until now, until I said it first. And then, panic, Darren. Fired the first shot. A bitter forced Facebook post. All families have disagreements. My daughter's just exaggerating to get sympathy. Sad, really. But it backfired. People weren't buying it anymore. Someone commented, funny how you never mentioned her paying your bills before now. Another replied, you sure didn't look too sick when you were cashing her checks. Then Lila switched tactics. Voicemail after voicemail flooded in. Liana, please. Your father isn't well. I didn't know he was going to post that. This is just a big misunderstanding. Please take it down before people get the wrong idea. Years ago, that voice would have wrecked me. Not anymore. I saw it clearly now. It wasn't about regret. It was about saving face. That afternoon, Nora and I walked over to the fall festival at the town square. The crisp air smelled like hay and sugar. Kids screamed from the bounce house. The brass band warmed up by the courthouse steps. I felt eyes on me the moment we arrived. But this time, it wasn't harsh. It felt like recognition. Like the truth had finally shifted the room. Ms. Langford, my old elementary teacher, nodded with a small, sad smile. Mr. Collins from the hardware store tipped his cap in silence. Then, near the pumpkin carving station, a woman I barely knew, one of Lila's old church friends, stepped forward. She touched my shoulder gently. You deserved better, sweetheart, she whispered. We all knew, we were just too scared to say it. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I whispered. Thank you. It felt too small for the weight in my chest, but it was all I had. Standing there in the heart of the same town. Where I once felt invisible, I understood something I had never dared believe. The shame had never been mine. It had always belonged to them. As evening fell, the square lit up with soft string lights. The smell of roasted corn floated through. The air, children laughed, music played. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing at the edge of someone else's life. I was right in the middle of mine. Later that night, fireworks burst in the sky above the courthouse. Red, gold, blue. I stood under them, head tilted, back, and somewhere inside me, a voice finally spoke. Sometimes the brightest things come after the darkest storms. This time I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was rising. That night, I leaned against Nora's window frame, watching the town quiet down beneath the stars. The air smelled like wood smoke and burnt leaves. It felt peaceful, still. But even in that calm, I knew something was coming. 2 days had passed since I shared the truth. For a moment, I'd almost believed it was over. That maybe silence would be the last word between us. Then came the knock. The knock wasn't loud, not angry, not rushed, just a soft, almost nervous tap at the door. I glanced at Nora, who looked up from her coffee, her brow tight with concern. Crossing the room slowly, I opened the door. A man in a uniform stood there, holding a thick manila envelope. "Miss Liana Marin?" he asked, voice calm. I nodded. The knot in my stomach tightened. He handed it to me. "You've been served. Civil suit. Contact info's inside if you've got questions." I thanked him with an automatic nod and shut the door quietly. My hands didn't shake, but my chest was heavy. I already knew who it was from. At the kitchen table, I slipped my finger under the seal and unfolded the papers. Darren had filed a lawsuit against me. The claims were wild. If they hadn't been so cruel, they'd almost be laughable. Theft. Emotional elder abuse. Financial abandonment. It was a meltdown dressed up like a court case. Nora leaned over, reading beside me. "Unbelievable," she whispered. "They're trying to break you because you walked away." For a split second, that old, familiar guilt stabbed at me, sharp and sudden. A quiet voice in my head whispered, "Maybe you should have stayed quiet. Maybe you're making this worse." But that voice didn't control me anymore. I took a deep breath, steady and full. "Not this time," I said, standing. "I'm not apologizing for saving myself." By noon, I was on the phone with legal aid in Columbus. I told them everything, calm, straightforward. Then I sent them everything I had, documents, receipts, emails, all of it. They listened carefully, asked smart questions. When I finished, the paralegal on the other end said, "You've got a solid case. Honestly, you should be the one suing for exploitation." But I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my life back. That afternoon, I took their advice and filed formal complaints. I told the truth in writing. Years of emotional pressure, guilt as currency, my labor used as silent payment. Turns out, financial abuse can go both ways, especially when adult children are turned into household ATMs. The backlash came fast. Lila called first. Her voice was shaky, layered in practiced grief. "Liana, please. You're tearing this family apart. We only wanted the best for you. You're overreacting. You know your father's not well." I didn't answer. Then Darren texted, "You think you've won?" Family always gets the last word. I stared at it for a long moment, feeling a strange mixture of pity and disgust. Then I opened the small drawer beside my bed. Inside was a tissue-wrapped bundle, the tiny plastic cake topper from my last birthday. The birthday they used as a reason to kick me out. One candle, a broken memory. I turned it over in my hand, laughing quietly at how much hope I'd once stuffed into something so small. "Family isn't who you're born to," I whispered to the quiet. "It's who shows you that you matter." 2 days later, I stood outside the police station, legal papers in hand. Beside me, a volunteer from the legal aid office. calm, supportive. The building was plain, more like a post office than a place for justice, but the weight it carried settled heavy on my shoulders. Inside, Darren sat at a wooden table, stiff and red-faced. Lila beside him, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. They both looked smaller now. The officer explained, "Cool and clear. If these charges go forward, they can be countered with defamation, and there's enough proof for financial abuse." Darren's face went redder. He shoved his chair back, making it screech across the floor. "This is a setup," he snapped. "She's manipulating everyone." No one said anything. Lila dropped into her seat, sobbing loud enough to echo off the walls. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. As they stormed out, the officer turned to me. "You did the right thing," he said gently. "Don't ever let them make you believe otherwise." Outside, the sky was bright and blue. The courthouse stood behind me. The town stretched ahead, quiet and crisp with autumn. The breeze smelled like endings and beginnings, all twisted together. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of either. With each step I took away from that gray building, I felt something heavy lift off my shoulders, not all at once, but slowly, like a chain being unwrapped from around my chest. No more defending myself. No more walking on eggshells. No more guilt stitched into my breath. As I crossed the lot, a sharp breeze picked up, tossing orange leaves around my boots. It felt like the world itself was sweeping away the last traces of who I used to be. In the rearview mirror, the courthouse got smaller and smaller until it was gone. I rolled the windows down, letting the crisp air rush into the car like a clean slate. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. I didn't check my phone. No missed calls laced with blame. No demands wrapped in silence. I wasn't carrying their weight anymore. I wasn't patching up a broken family that never held space for me to begin with. I was free, and freedom, it was quieter than I ever imagined. The next few days passed gently at Nora's place. Simple things, washing dishes, making breakfast, folding towels. Ordinary moments that used to feel like interruptions now felt like peace. One morning, scrolling through rental listings over coffee, I saw it. A small apartment downtown, old, a bit worn. But mine, if I said yes, and I did. By lunchtime, the lease was signed. Only Nora knew. She handed me a mug and smiled. "To fresh starts," she said. "To finally choosing me," I replied. The days melted into something soft and golden. I bought secondhand furniture, one piece at a time, a sun-faded couch, a creaky table, a wobbly chair that still had a little comfort left in it. I painted the walls a light sky blue, the color of calm. At night, I sat by the front window watching lights blink across town, and somewhere between then and now, the silence around me stopped feeling lonely. It started feeling earned. While unpacking one afternoon, I found something tucked at the bottom of a box. That tiny plastic cake topper. Bent. Cheap. The one from the birthday that changed everything. I turned it over in my hand, sunlight catching on its edge. But it didn't sting anymore. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like proof that I survived. I placed it on a small shelf above my desk, not to honor them, but to honor the girl who never stopped standing. A few weeks later, a card showed up under my door. No return address. Just a short note, written in neat handwriting. "You were never the problem. Some people just can't stand what they can't control. I never found out who sent it. But I didn't need to, because I already knew. The truth. Family isn't something you earn by breaking yourself. It's given freely, or it's not real at all. And in their absence, I was building something they could never take back. Peace, self-worth. A life shaped by choice, not duty." That night, sitting by my window with the lights below twinkling like stars, I whispered a truth I had waited forever to say. I am enough. Sometimes, the only way to become the person you were meant to be is to leave behind the people who never saw your worth. Blood may connect us, but love, respect, and kindness, that's what makes a real family. Have you ever reached a point where choosing yourself meant walking away from everything familiar? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear from you. If this journey touched something in you, don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw stories that remind us you are not alone. Stay strong. Stay honest. Your past doesn't define you. You do.